Okay, Gamar Jobat, that is welcome to Sapere Aude number 422. And the topic of discussion is Arcana Veritas Masonic Book Prize that will be delivered by Brother Chris Earnshaw. In continuation of series of public lectures, we have the honor to host and welcome back Right Worshipful Brother Dr. Christopher Earnshaw, who is past Grand Historian and past Master of the Research Lodge, Grand Lodge of Japan. Scottish Rite 33rd degree, IGH, past Chairman of Education Committee, recipient of the Order of Merit from the Grand Lodge of Japan for educational activities. He has studied calligraphy in Daito Bunka University with Narusa Erizan and Ayoma Sano. Later, he got qualified in international marketing bachelor degree in Japanese and Chinese, London University, SOAS. He decided to re-educate himself by studying for a doctorate in neuroscience with a qualification in emergency medicine at the U.S. Naval Hospital in Yokosuka. He got a master's degree in transpersonal psychology, including comparative religion. Brother Chris is qualified as a professor of calligraphy. So the the way to be successful in life is to have a central belief that supports you in good times and bad. For him, that has been the study of the philosophy of Mencius. So it was a natural extension of his studies to join a Tao temple in 2016. Understanding the teachings of Tao has helped him better understand Mencius. He qualified as a grief counselor, completing a PhD in neuroscience via Tokai Medical University. You can learn more from his website, which I will share in the chat room, and there's much more to explore. By the way, I will use the opportunity to remind everyone that we had wonderful lectures delivered by Brother Chris with the following discussions. Those are all available on Sapere Aude YouTube channel and also on Patreon channel of Sapere Aude. So please, I highly recommend going back and listening, enjoying, exploring very interesting perspectives on Freemasonry that Brother Chris has dedicated several books and it in context of Chinese influence on Freemasonry. So definitely there is much to explore and see. So once again, welcome back. I will remind everyone that Sapere Aude is an international educational public platform that welcomes everyone, male and female, members and non-members. Anyone is welcome to join us, and anyone is welcome to download our videos, enjoy it, share with your lodges or friends, whoever might be interested in these topics. Just a reminder that anything that you hear here or learn here or in any other educational recordings that is provided through the channel, we all come here as individuals, and anything that we share should be treated as our own personal points of views and should not be attributed to the institutions that we are part of or may be affiliated with. And even though we may come from different traditions, different jurisdictions, we may hold higher ranks in our jurisdictions, anything that we share here should be treated as our own personal perspectives and standpoints, unless the speaker explicitly says that this or that statement is an official standpoint of an institution. Otherwise, everything is very personal interpretation, exploration, and attempt to expand our universe in this very complex and huge world that we live in. So, Brother Chris, floor is all yours. That is very interesting, the topic, Avda, which I didn't know existed, and I think there will be a new discovery for many of Sapere audience. So, floor is all yours.
Thank you. I have to apologize that the sound quality may not be wonderful because I'm connecting from Tokyo via my iPhone, as Microsoft won't let me into my Messenger app. Oh God, I hate Microsoft. Anyway, let's get on with it. So AVDA stands for Arcana Veritas Distinguished Award. This was set up by the Grand Lodge of Scotland to, and I quote, commemorate and celebrate outstanding contributions to Masonic literature, close quote. As this is the first year, the committee reached out to several authors, and that's included me, and I was asked to submit a book. But from next year, they will be, the AVDA will be open to submissions from the Masonic community. This year, I entered my book, Freemasonry, Initiation by Light, which we've talked about before, which gives a possible, things are going wrong, gives a possible Chinese origin to the craft. You can find lots of information online about it. The website for AVDA is Arcana Veritas, one word, .com. So the award is divided into three categories. One is for Masonic history books. The other two are Masonic philosophy and symbolism, and Masonic white papers. So this year, there are four authors in the Masonic history book, and from the four, one will be chosen as the recipient of the award. So we're so-called shortlisted. One is Richard Berman, who's written a book about the Grand Lodge of Ireland. Stuart Cleland, who wrote about the ritual of Martin de Pascali. David Harrison, who wrote The Life and Death of John Yarker. And myself, my book, Freemasonry Initiation by Light, The Secret of the Light in the First Degree. The winner will be announced on November 27th, so we still have a month. And that's also the day before the Grand Lodge meets in Edinburgh, so they're putting everything together. But personally, this has a little bit of history behind this, and I'm thinking of this as the Harrison Earnshaw rematch. Now, to give a little bit of background, what I mean is that in the early 18th century, there was a famous English clockmaker called John Harrison. He invented the marine chronometer, a kind of clock that could keep time while at sea. Because at that time in society, they were still using pendulum clocks, and obviously a pendulum won't work when you're at sea. How to determine longitude at any place on Earth was a long-standing problem. And of course, longitude goes from the North Pole to the South Pole. And so where you are on that, it's very difficult to work out. And then you've got latitude as well. So the you need to know both longitude and latitude to work out with accuracy where you are. And the longitude problem is basically finding a way how to coordinate clocks that are at distant places. So in England, Greenwich in London, just outside London, is what we call Greenwich Mean Time, which is 0. And from there, longitude was calculated. And also we set the clocks all around the world, starting with London. What happened was in 1707, there had been a naval disaster just off the, how should I put it, the west coast of England, what we call the Scilly Isles. And 4 naval warships were blown onto the rocks, and about 2,000 sailors drowned in that accident. The commander-in-chief was, this person has a great name, Sir Cloudesley Shovel. And he died in the accident as well. It's a totally, it's one of those stories of management knows best kind of arrogance, because there was a local man from Scilly was actually in the bird's nest, which is the observation deck at the top of the mast. And he knew the coastline of Scilly very well. And he warned the captain that they were going to be blown onto the rocks. But of course, the captain knew best and decided to go not to alter the course, and everybody died. This was a shock to the British government, and they set up 7 years later, in fact, in 1714, the Longitude Act. The Longitude Act was designed to find a way of how to calculate longitude with accuracy. And they offered a £20,000 reward to anyone who could find it. That's, in today's date, is the equivalent of about £4 million, or in dollars, what would that be? $6 million? I'm not sure. But yeah, so it's a large amount of money. And John Harrison, who I started the conversation with, he designed this clock chronometer to work at sea, because it didn't need it. It worked with a spring, and it didn't need pendulum. And this was the first of the type. Of course, to find out latitude, you use an astrolabe, which is a kind of instrument that brings the sun, look through a mirror, and it brings the sun down to the horizon, and you can work out the latitude. But and of course they use the sun at night, but during the daytime, the stars at night, because you could see the North Star. But during the daytime, you can't see the stars. So, and the impetus for this was, as I said, the Scilly naval disaster. So, one of my ancestors, Thomas Earnshaw, he was 25 years old when John Harrison died. He was also a watchmaker. He'd been apprenticed, and he made the construction of making these chronometers, simplified it so the price would come down, and make it available to the general public, because these were very, very expensive. It was rather like high technology in those days. And he's known for making a bimetallic spring, which means the spring is curled up, and the inside and the outside of the spring are made of two different springs. And the reason for that was so that temperature fluctuations didn't alter the speed of the clock. So that was been one of the difficulties to try and make this marine chronometer more accurate. He was also made improvements to the clock at the Royal Greenwich Observatory. So Thomas Earnshaw was granted an award by the Board of Longitude for his improvement to the clocks, and he received the equivalent of £400,000 in 1805. What's interesting about this is that Thomas Earnshaw's clock was the first, wasn't the first, but it was used on the first expedition on HMS Bounty when it went down to Tahiti, I think it was. And the clock was so valuable that it actually amounted to 50% of the total cost of constructing the ship. It's just unbelievable, you know. So it's rather like having a nuclear submarine. The nuclear part of it costs 50% of the rest of the submarine. But anyway, I digress. And of course, everybody knows HMS Bounty because of the famous mutiny led by Fletcher Christian. And the captain of that ship at the time was Vice Admiral William Bligh. And Bligh had joined the Navy at the age of 7. in the 1750s, going to the Navy at age 7. Anyway, so what it all boils down to is that these clocks, there was sort of competition between Harrison and Earnshaw, and now 250 years later, we're having the second Harrison Earnshaw rematch. That's a long way of explaining, but yes. So all I can say is, may the best book win. Do you have any questions?
Sure. May the best book win the prize. So as I see, there are 3 categories of the winners that they will be deciding upon. And my question is, what is the history behind when it was initiated, and is it a new?
No, it was started this year, and
So this is the
that's
first
yeah, the first, yeah, and that's why the committee had to contact various Masonic authors. I like to call myself a Masonic author, but to ask if we would submit books. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be every year now, and I'm surprised that other Grand Lodges haven't copied this, because this is just such a wonderful thing. We need more education. We need better books. We need people to read those books and to form opinions rather than just listening to gossip and what they read on or listen to on YouTube. You know, you have to study to be a Mason, and I think all Grand Lodges should have something similar to this prize. I think it's great.
Regarding the history, it is a very interesting historical rematch
Yes.
that you found the analogy.
Yeah.
The I've listened to most of the, I guess I I had pleasure to listen to Brother Berman. He was in Tennessee this year presenting his book. He's the lecturer, Bristolian lecturer of 2024, I guess.
Oh, okay.
That's the topic he was presenting. Uh, can you go a little bit further regarding the book that you presented?
I'd love to.
Yeah, just give us a little bit more insight in that regard.
Okay.
We had
So,
Stuart and David. Well, something happened during David's presentation, but we will be rehosting him somewhere in December, I suppose, with Marco
okay.
Fox, Sapere Aude. So it would be good to have your books, short teaser.
Okay, so thank you. So my book, Initiation by Light, is the first of 5 books in a series called Spiritual Freemasonry.
Yeah,
So I have been analyzing Freemasonry, particularly the monitor, the ritual, for spiritual insights, and I think each degree has a different spiritual lesson, and the first one is about the light, because in the degree the worshipful master brings the light from the east to the candidate. Well, this is very interesting because nowhere else in the world is this type of ritual done. So if you join um, any religion, you're either baptized or initiated with water, which is most common, or by fire, but never by light. And the only organization that does it is Tao, the Chinese. It's a kind of philosophical religion. It's a mixture between philosophy and religion. And so I was initiated into a Taoist temple in 2016, and I immediately recognized this as being the same as the first degree. The whole thing, even the building, was very similar. They had 3 senior officers, and the most senior was called, his title is the light transmitting officer. That's his title. And they each represent the sun, the moon, and the universe, what they called Wu Qi in Chinese. The candidates are asked to kneel before an altar. On the altar is a symbol for the religious canon of Taoism. They have 3 candles on their altar, and yes, so they also teach of what they call the 3 treasures, which are the word, the token, and the word, the token, and my brain's gone. The word, the token, and I can hear people. Sorry?
Sign token.
Yes, sign, token, and the word. Yes, sorry. Yeah. And they're the same, very similar to what Freemasons do. And it's very, very strange. I thought that was very strange. You know, the similarities were so. For example, when they bow, they lead with their left foot. They have to put the left foot forward first, and then they bow. Things like this. And so I looked into it, and I found altogether 26 similarities between Freemasonry and Tao. Tao religion. Need to point out that there are three types of Taoist religions. There is one that I joined is called Dao Jia, which means the house of Jia, which is based on the philosophy of Chinese. So they study Confucius, Mencius, Lao Tzu, and other famous Chinese philosophers. Then the second one, which you probably what springs to mind when you talk about Taoism, is called Dao Jiao. It's it has more rituals. It used to be associated with alchemy, and they do, even now they practice magic, whereas the Dao Jia doesn't. And the third one is a shamanistic type of Dao, which is quite common among the Chinese in the countryside, but it's less organized than the first two. So looking into this, I found, for example, there's a meaning for the finished and unfinished ashlas, which comes from the Chinese. They have the same explanations, and I've got my book in front of me, and in the East we have the letter G. They have the same, but they don't use G. They call it the enlightened God. Again, using light, enlightened, and it's hanging on a scroll behind the altar. The three main officers represent beauty, wisdom, and strength. I mean, it's exactly, it's just in a different order. Let's see. Yes. We have a mosaic pavement. In Taoism, they don't have a specific pavement per se, but everyone wears black and white. And the idea is, first of all, the women sit on the left-hand side being the weakest part, and we learn from our ritual about this, and the men sit on the right-hand side. We all wear black and white, and the black and white is represents positive and negative, not good and evil as taught in Freemasonry, but there's a star in the middle of the room, and this represents Confucian teachings, because Confucius, he talked about the North Star being a symbol for virtuous government. So the lodge, virtuous government of the lodge. And he chose this because all the other stars move around the North Star. The North Star doesn't move. So in the lodge, the star is in the middle of the lodge, and all the officers move around the lodge. So particularly at the end, the closing of the lodge, we form a circle around the star. So again, this is kind of emphasizing the Chinese connection. There's just so many. There's a reference to a square, level, and plumb in Chinese philosophy, and this Chinese, how should I call him? He was commissioned by the emperor to help relieve flooded land in China, and he said, "I only need the tools of the square, the compasses, and the marking line." We have two holy saints, John. The Chinese also have two patron saints of Taoism. One is known as Guang Yu, and he's a soldier, and he carries a large sword or halberd, and the other is a scholar called Lu Dongbing, Guang being soldier, which again is the right-hand side, represents strength, and the left-hand side, the scholar, represents education and the weaker side of Freemasonry. So these are just a few of the things I found. I found dozens of them. I separated it into a hard function and a soft function. Soft function being the ritual, and I believe there were 20 correspondences there, like the one I've just mentioned. And but the hard function, which is the physical room of the lodge, then I found about, yes, I'm looking at 12 or so. I also looked at the literature of the late Victorian time, because we had many what we called China hands. These are people who are fluent in China, and they were sent to China to work in the diplomatic corps. And so we had several consuls and ambassadors out there, and they were all Freemasons. And they recognized the how shall I say it? What they call the Chinese connection between Chinese thought and Freemasonry, but they couldn't pin it down to Taoism. And I think that's what makes my book unique. Not only have I made the connection, but I've also pointed out each of the points. And yes, there were lots of books written about Freemasonry at that time. There's one called Freemasonry and the Ancient Gods, the Hung League, the Triad Society, and the Triad and the Tabut, among others. And these all refer to rituals that are virtually the same as Freemasonry. I think it was and you can get these if you go to the Gutenberg Project, or Google Books may have them. The Triad and the Tabut, for example, he explains how the new candidates to a Chinese society, which was not Taoist but another society, how they had to enter with their left foot first, and in the ceremony they had to roll up their trousers on one side and also bare their right hand, and that was to show, because Chinese jackets tend to have large sleeves and it's easy to hide a knife in them, and to show that you're not carrying a knife, you'd have to roll the sleeve up. So all these I think they're more than coincidences. And so, yeah, I spent about 4 years researching this book, and it came out 3 years ago, I think. Yeah.
We actually had the discussion of several of your books, more or less presentations presenting details of the book. So I shared in the chat some of the videos that are already on Sapere Aude, and anyone can access them. I shared your webpage, which contains a lot of information and additional resources regarding the topic. So hopefully we'll see a very interesting competition there. What is the time frame for this? Is this end of the year? How the kind of prize will be presented, awarded to the authors,
Yes.
winner authors?
So it's on November the 27th, which is the day before the meeting of the Grand Lodge in Edinburgh, Grand Lodge of Scotland. And the presentation's been made between 10 and 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm now considering, because I have a job, this is also a Wednesday, 27th, which in the middle of the week for me is a little bit difficult. So to fly from Tokyo to Edinburgh and I'm looking at the logistics of attending the presentation.
So November 27th.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience for the author?
So one thing I
Yes.
found during my research was we talk about light in Freemasonry, but I don't think we understand in depth what it actually means. And many people think it means wisdom, or it may be a symbol for God or something similar. But actually, in my fourth book, which is called Freemasonry Royal Arch, I investigate this light, and it's quite surprising what the answer is. So I believe Freemasonry was not meant to be a moral education at all. It was meant to be a spiritual experience, and each degree had something to offer. So the first degree, you receive the light from the east, just like in Taoism, and it awakens your soul. And the second degree, the soul is energized by circumambulation of the lodge. And then the third degree, when you receive the hand of, I probably get it wrong. Yes, when you're raised in the third degree by the lion's paw of the tribe of Judea, well, that has a very important spiritual meaning, and it's the two, the light, the circumambulation, the second degree, and the lion's paw, the grip of the lion's paw, together they mean something really very interesting. And then in Royal Arch, then that is explained.
And as far as I remember, Taoism has two steps, 2 degrees.
Taoism.
Yeah, Taoism has two
No,
degrees.
Taoism just has the 1 degree.
Or just initiation and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yes, it's exactly the same as the first degree.
Okay. Somehow I
Yeah.
remember this.
So the second degree is alchemical in Freemasonry. It's about alchemy, and all the symbolism is hidden in the ritual if you know what you're looking for. And then the third degree is a mystical degree, and where the candidate is perfected. Well, perfection is one step, the first of 5 steps in Taoism when you get into the higher levels of understanding Taoism. After you've been initiated and you learn certain things, and it's not quite the same as Freemasonry after the initiation, but then your first step is to be perfected, and then you can go to different levels up from there.
When you say levels, again, those are not degrees. It's kind
They're
of
not degrees.
years of
They're,
experience and years of experimenting and learning, I guess, right?
no, it's actually to do with out-of-body experiences. So the perfection is where you are made spiritually available to leave your body. And then there are different levels of leaving the body. And the fifth one is when you can leave your body and come back at will. And you might think, well, why would I want to do that? Well, you can do a lot of work on the spiritual plane, helping people who are sick or when there's trouble, which you can't do on the physical plane. On the spiritual plane, there are no limitations. We call it Mugen. And so you can go thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. Time and place mean nothing in the spiritual world. When you get to that level, that's the fifth level.
And that's the highest level.
Yes. And so why I think it's important is because in the 1700s, there was a dispute in England about the immortality of the soul. And so you recognize that in the degrees they talk about the immortality of the soul. The soul never, never dies. And the third degree, it's repeated 5 times. Everlasting soul, the soul that never, never dies. So there's emphasis on that. And that's because in society, that's what people were talking about. Well, this Taoist experience teaches you how to experience immortality without dying. And that would have been very exciting to the intelligentsia at that time.
Just
But
one more question, and then I see A32 wants to take the floor. When you say out of body experience, I don't know whether you've heard or experienced this DMT based experience. If you know about it, is there any similarities, do you think, there?
First of all, this is a totally spiritual exercise.
In mechanics, let's say,
it's
of
a
getting
spiritual
that
exercise.
experience.
You don't have to take any external things to drink or to eat to experience immortality. It's how to use your mind to release your astral body from your physical body. And you don't die. It's rather like dreaming, but you wake up inside the dream. However, that is lucid dreaming, but the most advanced is out-of-body experiences, and that people nowadays would not understand that by looking at the ritual. But it's all hidden in the ritual. If you approach the each degree with the thinking or the understanding that I have, then you see a different story.
When you say ritual, you refer to Masonic rituals, not Dao ritual.
No, Masonic rituals. So I analyzed like line by line, looking for clues. So the ritual was written as a puzzle, and so I'm looking at one of my books here, see if I get some ideas. Yes. No. So there's an advanced form of code writing called steganography, and steganography isn't just replacing one word for another, or and for example, there is a Masonic code, but the Masonic code is really very simple compared to steganography. Steganography tends to be used by banks, for example, ATMs. You'll have QR code is quite like steganography because you don't recognize it as a code. This steganography was used quite extensively from my research in the degrees, particularly the second degree, and it was hiding things in the ritual. Once you understand the steganography, then things start to appear.
Great, thank you. Let's take the question from A32. I have no name for.
Yes, David, is just Pascal from Riyadh, the mysteries of ICT.
Welcome, Pascal.
Chris, thank you so very much for this, and I think you have to come back to elaborate even more the last part of your intervention right now. And David, thank you for organizing. Just, I want to come back, Chris, what you said about the understanding of the symbol, the concept of light in Freemasonry, also the link with the Royal Arch, if I'm correct. And correct me also if I'm wrong. You said it with other words. You said to some extent spirituality was there from the very start of Freemasonry, but to some extent it evolves. Not it disappeared, but it evolved. And so correct? Is it correct?
So, well,
But
my
I have a question on
understanding,
this. I have a question, but to make sure
yeah,
that I rephrase or summarize
yeah,
well what
yeah.
I understood well.
My understanding is from the beginning, this spiritual exercise in experiencing immortality without death was the objective of Freemasonry. And then around 1820, 1840, when it was the Victorian times, people were then focused on morality. And the idea of morality was brought in. So in 1813, when the Union came, they changed, they added or expanded the section on morality. So now Freemasonry is known as a peculiar system of morality. But I don't think it was that originally.
And so my question, but it's more a comment and just to have your
Sure.
feedback on it. I'm wondering, with the distance in the time, now, of course, we know the modern, the ancient, and so on. You just summarize also what happened at some point. I'm wondering if the institutionalization of Freemasonry with a Grand Lodge and with grades and with responsibilities and with fees and with charities and so on, to some extent did not strengthen the moral aspect, and of course the fact that because if you have if you are moral, it's almost like to say the good and the bad, so to speak. It's not really this, but you see what I mean. But then you have an organization, and so why to bother about spirituality if we can have a moral organization and we are good citizens on top of this, and you can be promoted and become the representative and the great architect of the universe on Earth. It's a bit.
Yes. So yes,
what is your feeling about this?
I think Masonry has to evolve with the times, and so during Victorian times, there was a focus on strictness and how to act in public and morality, and then they started introducing the poor laws, how to cope with all the poor people in England. And also one of the issues was that the first three Grand Masters never wrote down their objectives, what their objective of Freemasonry was. And so, at one time, Freemasonry was more like a drinking club, a gentleman's club. In the early days, like Lord Byron, he hardly ever went to lodge. And he was always in pubs getting drunk. The early days of Freemasonry were a little bit shambolic, but later with Grandmaster Lennox, things settled down and became more regular. But I think somewhere along the line, what the first three Grandmasters, they learnt this from a Chinese Mandarin who happened to visit London in 1687, I think it was, and he stayed for 2 years. Now, Taoism was unique to the court. It wasn't a popular religious sort of thing. It was a set of rituals to pay homage to your departed family, other emperors, but also to the philosophers, Mencius and Confucius. And so these rituals were done all the time. And as a Mandarin, which is a senior official, he would have known about this. And when he visited England, he stayed with the librarian at the Bodleian Library at Oxford University. This professor, his name was Thomas Hyde, he was very interested in comparative religion. And just by chance, the Mandarin spoke Latin. So a Chinese man speaking Latin, well, there's a reason for it. But anyway, so Hyde and the Chinese Mandarin, his name is Shen Fuzhong, they spoke together in Latin. And there are records of this Chinese man telling Hyde about, they called it incantations about Taoism and things like that. So how to incantations. So so Hyde was a court interpreter as well. He spoke Persian and 5 languages. So in the court of St. James II, he would be a regular guest. And he also knew people like Newton and Boyle, who were friends. The first Grand Master worked for Isaac Newton. It was just in the same building. And the building was only 50 people, you know. And George Payne was the director of the Mint, and Isaac Newton was, it's the other way around, isn't it? I forget. But they were both in the Exchequer. And so they knew each other. And so there's like a chain of transmission from the Chinese Mandarin to the professor to Newton to Payne, George Payne. And so you can follow these. And then another interesting development is to do with the competitive Grand Lodge, the Grand Lodge of the Ancients, set up in 1751. They started developing new degrees, and some of them have Chinese words in the degrees. They use words, passwords, and they use directions like stand up, sit down. They're using Chinese words, you know. And this is a Masonic degree, you know. And then there's a fourth aspect, is to do with the Gormagons. The Gormagons were set up by a past Grand Master, who the Duke of Wharton, who was thrown out of Freemasonry, said, I'll go and set up my own organization. And he called it the Chinese Order of the Gormagons. And so there's all these Chinese connections going on. And so it seems to me, yes, very, very possible that China would, because from until 1830, when we had the Opium Wars, we were trading freely with China. We're bringing tea, silk, furniture, all sorts of things into England, including opium as well. And so there's this great trade going on, and a lot of rich people started decorating their houses Chinese style. They bought Chinese wallpaper, including the king, King George IV. And when he was Prince Regent, he decorated several of his palaces in Chinese style. And even now, if you go to London, there are still houses with Chinese roofs. They've been there for 250 years. We have a pagoda in a park. We have I think it's 8-story pagoda. It's been there 300 years, you know. So this boom for things to do with China, also the Chinese philosophy. Confucius had been, the Jesuits had translated the Chinese Confucius into Latin. So now people in Europe could actually read it. And so you had all this, and the Royal Society was investigating the Chinese language as they thought it might be the universal language that would connect all countries around the world. It was just a fascinating time, and I think Freemasons were swept up. And so Sayer, Payne, de Sagoulier, the 3 Grandmasters, they said, this is, you know, if you set up an organization with a Chinese theme, you're going to attract a lot of aristocrats. And that's exactly what happened. If you look at the membership of the Horn Lodge, and I have the membership I put in my book, 1724, they're all nobles. There's dukes, there's the king of Germany, we have the Minister for State for Scotland, and we just have so many famous people there. You know, these are not laborers, and they're not interested. You know, if you said, "Oh, we got this new lesson on morality," you're not going to teach somebody who's Secretary of State, you know, morals. But if you had a secret Chinese method for immortality, they would be very interested. And I think that's what happened. Hello, I think we lost something.
Jeremy,
Brilliant.
you are
Thank you.
intervening?
I am here, but I didn't know that my microphone.
Okay, you just turned off your microphone. So, yeah, you want to take the floor? Okay. Pascal, any other follow-up?
No, just thank you so very much, Chris, for this wealth of history, stories, and information. Thank you so much again.
You're welcome. It's in my book. Enjoy, please.
I have a question regarding that formula, immortality without death, without dying.
Yeah.
Would you consider it as the proof of immortality or
Oh, yeah.
way to immortality?
No.
It's
It's proof of immortality.
Proof.
Yeah, it's not the way. The way is when you die, then you experience immortality. And the ritual is very clear. The soul never dies. And it says it in the third degree. It says it 5 times. Everlasting life. And the reason was because in the general population, they were, and this is of course the Enlightenment. And during the Enlightenment, they were reevaluating the teachings of the church. And so one of the things was to do with what happens when you die. So the church had no answer for this. They couldn't explain. You go to heaven, and then what happens? How do you go to heaven? And of course, the Catholics brought in this nonsense called the purgatory, where you had to purge your soul of any evil. I think now the official position is the Vatican is actually trying to walk back this and to get away from purgatory. But so people really didn't understand. There were several ways of thinking about it. First of all, if you die, how long do you have to wait to be immortal? Do you have to wait to the second coming of Christ, or even longer? Do you sleep? Are we asleep and just waiting to become immortal? Or does the body die and does then the soul die? When the body dies, does the soul die? No, the body dies, but the soul is immortal. And there were various ways of thinking about this, and nobody knew the answer. And it was written about in newspapers all the time. They talked about it in the Houses of Parliament. About immortality. The Diet or the Congress or British House of Parliament, there's no way they're going to talk about immortality nowadays. They're not interested. But in those days, it was very important for them, very important.
Well, immortality has been important always, not only in that period,
Well,
even now, I think it
yeah, but
has some value and interest.
Yeah, but nobody thinks about it, And so if you knew you were immortal, I think you would act differently every day, because you think, oh, well, I died. That's no big deal. I'll come back again.
That's where exactly I was trying to somehow formulate and bring together immortality and morality. So, do you think somehow kind of experiencing immortality makes you more moral?
Maybe. Probably
where does
two
this
are not
notion
linked.
of morality fits in? It wasn't just an invention. If we follow your theory, then morality has to do something with immortality or experiencing immortality. It brings you to set of rules how you behave during the life. For some reason, there should be some connection between morality and immortality.
Yeah,
Do you
so
think
this
so?
is what this is what they were talking about. So if you led an immoral life, would you be, after you die, would you become immortal? but you are immoral in this life. Why should you be immortal? You know, if you've murdered people, you are a murderer. In the next life, why should you receive immortality like everybody else? So these are the sort of questions they were asking.
So that's where the church comes in and kind of has that huge power and authority to decide for you whether you will be immortal and you'll be
Yeah.
great or not. You
Yes.
will
Yeah.
you resurrect and stay immortal forever or just go to hell? And that's what gives them the power, right? But
Right, and that's where
what about in Taoism?
excommunication comes in. If you're excommunicated,
Yeah, exactly. That was
then
like killing you off from
yeah,
being immortal in future.
you can never be immortal. But that's BS, because everybody is immortal.
Yeah,
Even
but
Hitler is immortal.
how does immortality reflect in Taoism? I mean,
Oh yeah,
in Christian setup, I understand, but there are many other worlds, including
yes,
Taoism. So
right,
how immoral, as you said, Hitler is immortal in the
yeah,
spiritual sense, right?
yeah,
So
right.
so
But the
how
quality of
does
his life,
how does
the quality,
immortality impose morality on you? Why, if it doesn't matter?
well, because nobody believes in immortality.
No,
It's
you're
not it.
trying to apply contemporary kind of
Well, no,
one.
even in those days, nobody understood it because it's not in the Bible. You know, you go to heaven, but doesn't explain immortality to anybody. And so, I mean, my feeling is people like Hitler will experience immortality. Doesn't mean to say the quality of his immortality is the same as everybody else's. He may be, his soul may be restricted in a physical sense.
So
You know?
that's where the degrees come in, right? Sort
Yes.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
some
Yeah.
sort of the
Yeah.
full
So.
access, limited
Yeah.
access to immortality,
Right.
and
So then Taoism has believed in immortality for more than 4,000 years. That's their credo. And as you say, the quality of your immortality in Taoism is the first level is the perfect level. And then above that, you have 3, 4 more other levels. If I get my book out, I could actually probably find it. More much. And this is when you get to the top, you can live like a god. It's
apotheosis is actually becoming godlike, like
yeah, but that's just a word, isn't it? It's just a word. You got to experience it. If you experience out of body, I've had 12 out of body experiences since I read, in the last 15 years, and then I immediately recognized what the ritual was trying to say. So once you've had an out of body experience, your life changes. It's mind opening. It's eye opening, but also mind opening. It's fantastic.
Gabriel, while Chris is finding something, you can.
Okay. Yeah, first of all, thanks Evan so much for allowing me to reconnect with this sort of knowledge. I believe it's really interesting, this sort of Chinese connections that you
Right.
mentioned, and I kind of agree with you more insofar as the amount of spirituality we've got in our rituals and grades and initiations is concerned. Perhaps that's a kind of interpretation, from myself, and regarding this sort of mysteries. Perhaps our rites, rituals, grades, and initiations are a kind of gate to recover this knowledge about immortality that
Yes.
exists in ourselves. Is a kind of and perhaps that is actually the lapidem philosophorum that we've got in the core in our hearts, in the sacred chamber of our hearts. And it's really interesting because you have mentioned a kind of initiation by light and the intrinsic connection in the past, and that that recalls to me about these alchemical initiations by elements. So, for instance, we've got the solutio initiation, by the water, the calcinatio initiation by the fire, the putrefatio initiation by the earth, and the sublimation by the earth. But this initiation by the light, it's fascinating because it's not the perception of the light we've got in a conventional way. It's another kind of light. It's another kind of, perhaps it's a kind of Geros Gamos, I mean to say the Mysterium Connectionis of all of these elements. And when we pass for all these initiations is actually purifications to recover this sense, this psychological, psycho-spiritual sense of our immortality, and that's actually really interesting, and even much more considering this perspective. This philosopher from Denmark, I mean to say the Soren Kierkegaard, when Kierkegaard mentions in the past that the eternity is in the instance and the mortality is in the moment. For that reason, perhaps we are living instances, no moments, in through our rituals.
Just in front of 1 second, we live in the second, because behind the second is all past, and in front of 1 second is future. So there is only the now. The now is the important thing, and that is very much like quantum mechanics. Everything exists in the point. But what was I going to say? Yes. So interesting for me was that in our third degree, the master brings the light from the east to the candidate. Well, in Taoism, the master of the temple, his title is the light transmitting officer. That's his job, to bring the light from the east, which is actually in Taoist temple, they don't worry about east, west, and south, because the universe is everywhere. So but he brings it from Wu Chu, which is the it's rather like the universe, from the depths of the universe. He brings the light to give to the candidate. And there's a special little thing that I can't, because I took an oath I would not explain it, so I won't explain it. But,
I know what you mean.
Yeah, so it's a little bit similar to Freemasonry. I just found the quote about the people in Taoism. There are 5 states of enlightenment. So the first is known as the perfect. So we talk about the perfect Mason. Well, where do they get the word perfect from? I think they took it from the Chinese. The second is the immortal. The third is the saint. Then there's the sage. And the last one is called the Cien. And Cien is a... it's hard to explain what a Cien is. It's a... if you became a Cien, you wouldn't come back to your body. Whereas the other ones, you can return to your body whenever you want to. But the Cien, you're so involved in the matters of the spiritual world, you just leave your body. I don't know if the body dies or it just becomes petrified or whatever. But yes, I don't think we have too many examples of people becoming Cien. Cien is the Chinese character is for the man in the mountain. And so to become a Taoist saint, that's what they used to do. They used to go into the mountains, into temples for solitude and reflection and things like that.
You know what? I think we are getting back home through our rituals and rites and Freemasonry in general. We are getting immortals through these sort of initiations. We are getting recover this memory about immortality.
Yes. So I think the important thing is to think about it, just to be aware of immortality and how important it is, because this life is not final. And, it brings up so many other things to think about. And you just mentioned light earlier. In the first degree, the candidate only speaks twice. And first time he says God, the second time is light. And that is from the book of John. God is light. That is from the book of John. And the first verse of the book of John is God is light. But because it starts at the beginning of the ritual and halfway through the ritual, people don't see the connection between God and then light, but there it is, so that's your light. I mean, there's just so many things hidden in the ritual. It becomes an exciting quest to try and unearth. I don't know if I've found them all, but I've certainly found 28 so far. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. Pascal, your hand is still up. You want to take the floor? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Robert, David, great to see you.
Yes, I had a question. Sorry, I was.
Yeah, please.
I had
Please take the floor.
Chris, turning back what you say, really is first time what you share when you were starting 5 times is mentioned eternity or in the third degree, and you said when we die, you say something like this: when we die, eternity is starting. And I never thought about this like this, but you will see where I want to bring you to explain more. For me, it can make sense in the sense that, okay, eternity, so you die, you go back to the big emptiness, the great emptiness, the great nothing, the great, and the third principle of thermodynamics, nothing is created, everything is transformed. So to my mind, it makes sense. But when I'm listening to you talking more about this, I have the impression for you, it's like in your other life,
Yeah.
So there, I must say, after still all these years, I can hear it, but I am closer to the emptiness, the nothing, than. So how you get there from you become
right. So
concretely, because I like this is what I like with you that you repeat several times. It has to be practice. It has to mean something. So how
and you can prove it. So the universe, as you say, is enormous, really enormous. And when you listen to some qualified astrophysicists, just in the Milky Way, we have, what is it? I mean, 100 million constellations, and the Milky Way is one of 100 million constellations. And our constellation, it would take you like, I don't know the exact number, but like 3,000 light years just to go from one side to the other, and that's only a fraction of the thing. So my point is that space is so vast. Humans have this ability to use their imagination. We call it visualization, and you can create an idea. And what you're doing is putting energy into an image, and it's what they call a thought form. And if you have enough people creating the same thought form, it actually exists in the universe somewhere. And this has actually been practiced by Canadian psychic society. I think it's in Toronto. If you look up on the internet, it was like in the 1970s where people created a spiritual being by all thinking about it and talking about what he looks like, what he sounds like, and eventually they were able to use a medium to contact this spirit, but who didn't really exist. He was a thought form. And so when you have, 1 billion Catholics all believing in the same situation with Mary and God and Jesus, and there's a golden palace and whatever, and this is heaven. This is what exists somewhere in the universe. And when you die, that's where you go. But for Taoists, that's not important. They wanted to experience the universe, and they would travel all around the universe. They weren't worried. They weren't interested in going to heaven. And in heaven, you will find your family, your pets, everybody's waiting for you. And sometimes in near-death experiences in hospitals, the patient who is sick and about to die experiences family standing beside him in the hospital. So the spirits are sometimes able to, well, they help guide the dying person's spirit straight into heaven. They don't want the spirit to get lost what in Bardo, what the Tibets call Bardo, the wastelands, because there is a very interesting book called 30 Years Among the Dead, written by a psychiatrist, and his name, I always forget his name, Carl Wickland, yes. You can get it as an ebook for like $1 or $2 because it was written a long time ago. And it's a long story, but he details the situation of people in the Bardo, and they talk to him how they got caught there and why they didn't go to heaven and all these sort of situations. The Band of Mercy, spiritual beings who come and try and help these people. It's fascinating. Does that explain? Probably makes it more difficult, more complicated.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So I'm very much interested in the spiritual. So I work a lot with people who are possessed of negative entities. I clear them for them so that they get their life back together. Because once you've been infected by a negative entity, you lose control of your thinking and your life, and you start saying things spontaneously that are inappropriate in society, and then people shun you, and then they put you in mental hospitals, and your life just goes downhill. So I often help people who have been infested by negative entities with just a simple exorcism. And it's not me doing it. I'm asking people on the other side. So I really believe in this, the power of the spirits and angels, but I'm not a religious person. I don't, all that dogma, I don't need the dogma. But spiritual beings, very powerful beings like archangels, they all exist. I've experienced them firsthand. So yes, it's reality.
But Chris, is it a creation of your mind, or
yes.
the mind of several people, or is it a mix of that and not that? Is existing by itself, but
yes. Yeah. So that is a valid point. Maybe the energy is forming itself into angelic beings because it knows I will understand and accept that form. But if it came as a blast of energy, I wouldn't know what to do with it. It's like a volcano, it's just uncontrollable. Yeah, that is a valid point. And but negative entities do exist, and it's all explained in the book 30 Years Among the Dead. It's totally fascinating. Yes, so
actually that was my question when you said that when you die as a Christian because of the billion Catholics praying and thinking about the same God, the same image, you go to that heaven. So
yes,
is that the thought form? And you said yes, that's the thought form, and your spirit goes there when you die.
Yes.
So just to try understanding the way you put it, there is a reality and there is a thought out reality because somebody kind of energizes it from the earth. I don't know, it's
Yes.
up there or down there somewhere, wherever it is.
It's
So
belief.
belief of
Yeah.
existing individuals created and maintains heaven.
It's called in the technical words is a collective consciousness. So a lot of consciousness are all collected in one place. So if you're belong to a local church. You will identify with that church. When you die, you probably also the same church and the same people.
It brings so many questions into existence.
Yeah, I
So
know.
if
Yeah.
all humankind disappear, that will disappear as well, that immortality.
No. Oh, if there were no
Is there
no,
any
I don't. Yeah,
interdependence, as you put it?
right. So I think
So
the
God needs humanity to exist, sort of.
well, yes, we
Not
are a
in the sense
reflection
that
of God.
somebody should know about him. It just now the way you put it, it's like a battery. It's kind of a matrix. You need these people
Yeah,
to
it's a matrix.
energize
Yes.
your
Yeah.
being.
So you only need the qualification for immortality is to have a soul, and animals have souls. But the Catholic Church didn't recognize that. They say animals don't have souls, which is another issue. But the reality is that animals have souls, but insects don't. No, so you're not going to find insects in heaven, but you will find animals, particularly family pets and things.
Okay. Every single statement brings in a
Yeah,
new
I know.
dimension of questions.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Chris,
please.
so it's not a conclusion, but so the importance of believing in something, because it
Yes,
makes me think the question
yes,
of David also. If
yeah,
during all your life you don't believe in God, you will never see
right.
God later. If you
Yeah,
believe in something, you
yes.
might, and this is
That
the power,
sounds like Pascal's
the,
argument.
yeah, this is fascinating.
Yeah. Well, so the point is, and that's what the whole issue was in the 1700s. What about atheists? They don't believe in anything. Do they get immortality? Well, a lot of them don't. They get trapped in Bardo, and that's explained in the book. And so they're trapped in this place because they don't believe that there is a heaven. They don't believe there is a God. And they end up in this dreary, dark underworld, and everybody's moaning and complaining. All the spirits are down there, all moaning and complaining, and they don't know what's going on. There's confusion, there's chaos, and it just goes on forever and forever, whereas the people who go through Bardos into the heavenly areas. And so heaven's not one place, it's all these collective consciousness. But I was born a Christian, but I don't go to church. I don't believe most of the dogma. I think it's nonsense. But I believe I will go to heaven. Yeah, for sure. So, but in those 1700s, they thought atheists and agnostics, they were, how should I say it? They were, society despised atheists. And it's in our ritual as well. They talk about, I forget the word. There's a word.
Libertine atheists.
Libertine, yes,
You mean
libertine and
you mean
something.
the
Yeah,
Constitution under
yes, right. Yes, yeah. Libertines and stupid atheists or something like that.
Yeah.
And so there was a big debate at that time going on about religion. And so on tombstones in Europe, we write R.I.P. on the tombstone, rest in peace. Because they thought when they died, they were sleeping until Jesus called them for immortality. That's what they believe. Well, a large percentage, that's what they... So everybody puts RIP on the tombstones nowadays. They don't understand what it means. You don't sleep. When you die, the next instant, you're just somewhere else. You may be floating out of the hospital where you died, and then the sky opens up, there's bright light, and you're sucked in, and you come out into heaven. You should read books about near-death experiences. They all say the same thing. People who died, there are people who died, and 40 minutes later, they were brought back to life. And it's just incredible stories. And they all experience the same thing. But doctors refuse to accept it.
So there is this saying, dogs don't go to heaven. So can we say that, as you were saying, that your heaven may be different from my heaven because we believe different things?
Yes,
So there is
yes,
no heaven, objective heaven. There is
yeah,
just your heaven or
yeah.
those heaven for those
So,
who think like you and think
yes,
like me, think like Pascal, Gabriel, and they
yeah.
may not
But it,
coincide with each other. They never overlap.
yes, I think there is a low overlap, and I think it's based on soul groups. Groups form souls on the other side. They look like we are now, but much younger. I think the average person on the other side looks like they're 25 or 30 years old. They died when they're 80, but on the other side, they have all this vitality and energy, and they live together in units of, I don't know, perhaps 100 people, and they have houses and they have jobs to do, and they even have buses and things like this, and bus drivers. The only thing they don't do is they don't eat. They don't drink. So there's no ablutions, there's no going to the toilet. That's all finished with. You don't feel hungry, you know. And so the idea is, when on the other side, you study and you talk to people and learn about problems you had on your life on Earth, and they review it and they talk about it, and we try to learn from it and try to help other people, and it's just the soul growth, and that seems to be the objective on the other. And then one time you then get chosen, and how this works, you have to read Jane Roberts' books on Seth. There's about 8 in the series, but at one point you get chosen to reincarnate back to Earth. And you come back to Earth, you're born into a baby, and you come up and have another life. And the whole cycle and the whole objective of this is to learn. We have to learn. There are things in heaven you cannot experience. There's no pain, there's no fear, there's no threatening situations, there's no illness, there's no fighting. You can only learn about these emotions on Earth. And that's what it's about.
Very practical aspect from your point of view. In your experience during years that you've spent on the research, would you consider Taoism as one of the good practices to experience the out of body experience, and not only just this spiritual experience that you described in 5 levels? You
I
are
would
born
say no.
Christian. I mean, you were.
I was
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, there are 2 books that explain this. One is called The Secret of the Golden Flower, and it describes in detail how to have an out-of-body experience following the Taoist method. It is very complicated and very difficult. This book was rewritten in the 1800s and republished. It's called the Tao. The Tao of Yoga. And this is a much easier way to understand the secret of the golden flower. But if you really want to learn about it, you should read people like William Buhlman, Buhlman, Robert Monroe, Robert Peterson, and people like this. They study this, and they have a much simpler way of learning how to have out-of-body experiences.
So again, from your point of view, from practical point of view, you would think that at least, okay, let's make it more individual. Let's say in your life you achieved more spirituality or more spiritual experience through the teachings and techniques of Taoism than any other practices. Can I put it that way? Or it's a
Not
huge combination
really.
of everything and everywhere?
Yeah, so not everything is taught in Taoism, and also a lot of modern Taoist adherents aren't interested in outer body experiences. You know, they believe that they will be, or they are, in fact, are immortal. So they don't really think about these things. But I think the West likes proof. You know, you do an experiment, you have proof, and then you record it, and then you repeat that. That's the Baconian system. So in the 1770s, when somebody says, "Well, I know a technique that you can experience immortality without dying," that would be really quite exciting for those people. Very exciting, I think, because it solves two things. One is you experience, and I've done it, so I know. I'm not as powerful as people like William Bullman, Adventures in the Afterlife, I think it is. His experiences are fantastic. The things he's done. I haven't had those sort of experiences, but one thing you know is you have no fear of death. You lose that fear of death. You get into the world. I'm going to die. So what? I'm immortal. That's what you learn, and it's very liberating and exhilarating at the same time.
Gabriel?
So I wanted to highlight the recommendation by Chris regarding the book The Secret of the Golden Flower. It's actually amazing. It was written by Richard Bilhem, and there is an interesting prologue by Carl Gustav Jung.
It was translated by.
Translated.
Yes,
That's what I meant to say.
From Chinese into German. Yes.
Yeah. That's it. And in the Tao Te Ching, Richard Bilhem mentioned so many interesting things relating to this sort of things we are talking about. So several fascinating stuff have mentioned along this talk, entities, the spiritual world, and I was thinking about this interesting perspective of this psychiatry, sweet psychiatry called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and that's written fascinating books as well.
Yes.
And there is an out of experience, an out of body experience, I mean to say, related to this sort of phenomena. It's really interesting to highlight. I recall that there was a family that had children and suddenly, unfortunately, passed away. And with over the time, this couple decided to get another baby, but they didn't tell to the baby and the truth about this brother. And this kid, over the years, got an adult and suddenly suffered an accident and had an out of body experience. And when was came back, and he was sharing this experience and was telling to the parents about a little brother that in the other worlds, and the parents were utterly petrified and gobsmacked because they revealed that there was another baby before her birth, and that was utterly fascinating because it's a kind of proof of that.
Yeah, but it's only proof for those parents. That's the problem. It's an experience those parents had, but other people won't believe it, and particularly deeply religious people say, "Oh, well, you're hallucinating," or "He made it up," or you hear it all the time. But when you experience it yourself, and it hits you in your core, that's what's important. That education, and that's what Freemasonry is. I think is trying to show people is that you are a spiritual being. You never die. Don't fear death. And we're all immortal. Let's have a party.
I can agree with you more.
Yeah. So There's just so many books that I could introduce, but I think I'll limit it just to those 3 or 4 at the moment.
And on the other hand, I wanted to highlight this interesting phenomenon regarding the entities. In psychologically speaking, when we think so much in a thing, we create a thing. So we've got individual psyches, but at the same time, when we are getting together in a kind of group, for instance, we create a group soul.
Yeah.
And if we are much more, we create an institution soul.
Yeah.
So, for instance, perhaps if you are a healthy person, but you are connecting with an unhealthy group, the unhealthy psychical group affects your soul.
Sure.
And it's a kind of individual identity differentiated, by yourself.
Yeah.
But it's an individual soul. We create it's a kind of Elohim, this sort of gods. We create Elohim, along our lives at all times, but we are not conscious about it.
Well, I worked for 2 years as a volunteer in a psychiatric hospital here in Tokyo, and I walked around the wards helping, just talking to people, because they never had interaction with anyone who wasn't a doctor. The only people they interacted was with the doctor or the television, and that was it. So I went there and played card games with them and talked with them. But I saw probably 20 or 30 people who were possessed at any one time. You could see it. I mean, it's just obvious. And what do the doctors do when the patient starts to play up, getting agitated, etc.? Well, they just tranquilize him, put him to sleep. That's not going to cure anything because it's still inside him. And most of the patients, I would say 60% are highly stressed people from their job or society, and they can't cope with that stress and they end up in hospital. And probably 20% were what we call infested, sorry, an infestation of negative entities. So seriously, schizophrenic and people like that are really rare, very rare, even. But in Japanese hospital, they're all sick. Just tranquilize them. We're here to control them. We're not here to cure them. And I thought that's so bad.
Chris, with this respect, I have the following question, David, if we still have some time, and Chris, when you are saying that, so they are infested by entities and so on, but are they, and I'm coming back to what we discussed earlier, are they infested by their own creation, or is it really something independent of them? You see, they are so stressed and so focused, or so, I don't know what, that they are creating that energy that is turning back. Or is it really an external infection?
So that's what the book 30 Years Among the Dead explains very well. And I had a friend who tripped and she hit her head and was knocked unconscious, and she was taken to a hospital. And 2 days later, she returned to work. She was a different person, not because she hit her head, but because she had picked up a negative entity in the hospital. And that's where the 2 places to find negative entities are churches and hospitals. And when the person dies, if the individual doesn't have a strong core belief about the afterlife, then they just wander around. The spirit is trapped in the bardo, and they often end up in churches or temples or just stay in the hospital. And so what happened to my friend is the subconscious protects us from negative entities. The average person will never get one. But if you abuse alcohol or drugs or hit your head like a traffic accident or something like that, and you're unconscious, your conscious level, you're unconscious, so your consciousness is kind of minimized, and there's a gap, and these entities come in. And particularly with people who abuse alcohol, they attract these entities because the entities cannot drink alcohol, but they want the buzz, the feeling of alcohol. And so if they're inside the body, they feel that buzz of drinking alcohol. And so if a person wants to stop drinking alcohol and goes on the wagon, he won't be able to, because there's these entities pushing him. Just the one drink, just one drink. It'll be okay, one drink. And so he goes on the wagon and he goes to the Betty Ford Center or whatever it's called. And 6 months later, he's drinking again, because it's this negative entity inside him. And these are real things. This is real. I work with a lot of people who are, they have mental issues, but they are perfectly healthy people. And when you do this sort of work, you know what people, when they are infested or infected with negative entity, they tend to be very short-tempered, they're sleepy, they tend to be aggressive, they sometimes strike out, or they shout at people, obscenities, things like that, which is not in their character, you know, and it's because inside something is motivating, something pushing them to do it. And so this is the world we live in. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience in this world. It's part of the cycle we go through. We're here to learn about, you know, war and peace and suffering and things and love and all the other things. And if you get to a certain level of spiritual level, you don't have to reincarnate, because there's nothing to learn here. So we're all part of this spiritual experiment that's going on. And it's very exciting, I think. And you won't learn anything about it from a priest or from the Bible or the prayer book. They don't know, because this is all medieval thinking. You know, the people in the 13th century were trying to explain what I'm talking about, but they didn't have the vocabulary. So they talked about dragons and things like this, you know. And so they weren't able to explain in words that we would understand as modern humans. Yeah.
I guess politically thinking of my country now, today in Georgia, my my pro-Russian government, who we want to get rid of on 26, has infected us as external cancer.
Yeah. Well, that's an analogy. That's an analogy. It's the same, you know.
It is.
In fact, and how do you get rid of it? It's not easy, yes. But with the spiritual world, there are rules, you know, and we are more powerful than the spirits, because we have free will. God gave us free will. We make the choice. And if we don't want to be infected, well, we can be exorcised and say, get the hell out of here. I mean, you need to know how to do it, but it's not difficult. And but they have to, if they're told to leave your body, they have to do it. There's no argument about it. Just like that, instantaneously gone. So the spiritual world, we're near the apex. There are spiritual beings like archangels above us who have infinite power, but you know, in the animal kingdom, we're at the top with the apex predator.
Would you say that Taoism also has these 4 layers of creatures, like humans, animals, plants?
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah. I'm sure they do. Because, you know, they are much more spiritually aware than anybody in the Western world. You know, they are people who travel, you know, leave their bodies and travel the spiritual world. And it's written in their books, it's described. Lao Tzu talked about it in his Tao Te Ching, you know. So they're experienced in this. And but all we are getting are fables and jumbled up philosophy from the medieval times that's been translated into 7 different languages, from Aramaic to Latin to Greek to Middle English to Old English, and they're rewritten by James II. So you can't believe anything. It's just, translation of one word makes a complete, turns the meaning of the sentence upside down. So I think we forget about that book. It's just a book of myth. You don't need it. Experience is it. And in the Enlightenment, they were about experimentation and proof on based on the Baconian scientific system, and that's what they were doing.
Okay.
And that's what the ritual's all about. Once you kind of understand how to, because of steganography, they made it hidden it from prying eyes. You had to be told in a room beside, and they say, "Well, this is what it actually means."
But unfortunately, they don't share it
Right.
in the next room.
So I describe this as pirate's treasure. So, in the old days, pirates used to bury treasure on an island and then come back later to get it. But what if all the pirates died? They forgot to come back or couldn't come back. Well, the treasure's there. So this is what we're dealing with in Freemasonry. The treasure's inside the ritual, but people don't know how to find it. They don't have the right tools.
Okay, then another question. You spoke about the Bible being translated and things get lost in translation.
Yes.
But the experiences are real, and that part should be kind of you can apply Baconian system or scientific system to it, scientific method to kind of your experiences. What about the rituals then? Rituals have been cut and pasted and kind of modified in different versions.
Right.
So you always get this question of authenticity anywhere in any language. So how do you deal with that?
So in my case, I went back to the earliest rituals I could find, and what was it called? 3 distinct knocks is one of the earliest ones, and I think it was written 1760s, and then the Grand Lodge of Massachusetts and Philadelphia, they also use very old rituals. But again, we have issues with different types of ritual, like the web ritual, for example. So yes, there was a proliferation of rituals based on the Grand Lodge of Ancients, starting occasional lodges or traveling military lodges in America during the War of Independence. And after the war, these lodges either became provincial Grand Lodges or actually Grand Lodges in their own name, and they kept using the same ritual. But they don't all come from the same source. That's the problem.
So to summarize, is there an authentic ritual you would consider as the most kind of
well, I used to. Well, I think the point is that all the rituals have what I call signposts in them, and the signposts tend to be in all the rituals. The words may change, but the signpost is there. And for example, what was it? When our great brother and Mason Pythagoras exclaimed "Eureka!" That's in the ritual. He didn't say Eureka. That was Archimedes. But other people have used that same phrase. Pythagoras exclaimed Eureka. But Eureka was, and the story, every schoolboy knows it, but one of the problems is that modern education, people don't know the story about Archimedes. Archimedes got into a bath And
What
the
are
bath was
still
full,
the
and the water, and he understood water displacement, and then he used that to measure the amount of gold in a crown. And then, because the crown is an irregular object, you couldn't measure it, and so that's how they worked out these sort of things in those days. But so why is this mistake, which in those days any schoolboy would have known? Any schoolboy, even, well, I mean, nowadays most schoolboys don't know it, but you know, I went to a school in England, a public school, where we learnt Latin when we were 6. We started learning Latin, so, and Greek came later, so we knew all these stories. And so when I read it, I knew that it was wrong, but why didn't they correct it like 150 years ago? Well, they didn't correct it because this is a signpost. It's pointing to something else. And when you collect enough signposts and then start connecting them together, then you get this sub-message that comes out. And this is what steganography is all about. The cipher in the ritual.
So even though these rituals have been cut and paste so many times by so many authors, by so many jurisdictions, you still have those indicators that you can recognize. But the question is that how systematic are they, or the rituals are just to direct you to your attention to something, and it doesn't have its own mechanics, so it doesn't matter how it is written. The important is the part is that it is written and it indicates somewhere else. So rituals are the kind of maps to somewhere, to some destination, or rituals are themselves the way to get somewhere.
I think they're both the same, but yes, they are. That's why I call them signposts. They're pointing in a certain direction, and when you follow it through, you come to this logical conclusion that the second degree is about alchemy. You know it. And then when you go a little bit deeper, when, for example, Hiram is escaping his attackers in the temple, he's attacked in the south, and then he goes to the west, and the person with him, the conductor, says, well, let's escape by the east. That doesn't make sense, because the north is closer. If you come in the south and you go to west, the next one's north. You don't cross right over the temple to the other side. You want to get out quickly, yes? So why don't you go to the north? So then the story is, well, does Herod's Herod's temple have only 3 gates? No, it doesn't. If you look at Josephus, you find there are actually 4 gates. Well, what's all this about? Well, in Taoism, there is a story of an escape through 3 gates, and the 4th gate is locked, so you cannot escape. It's the same story.
The question would be, have you tried to put together in a writing whatever you or deciphering those signposts for others, or it's part of the which one?
The signposts are in the second degree. It's and I call it spiritual alchemy.
Okay,
that's the second degree.
So
which
in
is
that
about
part of
alchemy.
the book, you talk about this.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're all listed up. All the signposts are all listed up, and why I chose this. And for example, a very interesting one is to, and I don't know if I can find it, but is to do with the our oath. That I think it goes that, and I'd have to look at it, but you promise not to make any sign or dot or dash, no letter, word, letter, or character. Well, that's a little bit interesting because in the 1700s, the word character means Chinese word. That's a character. Now, in modern times, a character is on typeface, and that's where it came from printing. but they didn't have, well, they had printing, but they didn't have movable typeface like that. They had to carve out a whole piece of wood to print something. So the term character, which would what would a character be? For example, a question mark or the pound sign. These are characters. But in those days, they didn't have those characters. So does that mean any word, syllable, I forget the word, and the last word is character. I mean, this is
hieroglyphs.
Yeah. So this is another signpost, and so the first degree talks about the light, the importance of waking up the soul. The second one is the spiritual alchemy that you learn in the lodge. The 3, 5, 7 steps. These are all alchemical terms. 3, 5, 7. And the third one is the separation of the body with the help of the strong grip or the lion's paw of the tribe of Judea. And that's very important, understanding what that is, because that's bringing in their understanding of spiritual out-of-body experiences.
Gabriel, you have your hand up, so please. Sorry for keeping you waiting.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by all this stuff. So I'm really looking forward to sharing with you a couple of words related to the recent theme, I mean to say the spiritual entities. I would like to share with you a kind of own perspective about this sort of phenomena. Perhaps as once Gregory Gurdjieff mentioned that not everyone has a soul, at least inside. And or perhaps most of the time the soul is orbiting us, but not actually in our consciousness.
Well,
and
yes,
perhaps
it's in
our
our
ritual, our ritual, grace, Freemasonry, or our mystery school is a kind of a gate or way, or whatever you want to call it, to attract soul to ourselves, to our consciousness, because perhaps the consciousness is a kind of gate to the divine world, and for that reason it's so attractive to these entities, because they've got a kind of possibility to get a little bit closer and closer with God. Nevertheless, as you mentioned, we've got the willpower, and this gate, I mean to say, this porch or gate or path process through the consciousness is a mystical or chemical or symbolical opportunity to reunite to the Gadu or the great architect or geometrician architect of the universe, or whatever you want to call it. So nevertheless, I've seen this sort of phenomena in the clinical works as a psychologist. It's a kind of possession that the patients suffer when they experience these sort of entities inside themselves. It's a kind of loss of consciousness just for a second, just for minutes, or perhaps even months, and perhaps, just as I mentioned before, and with the spirit to highlight it, I think that's the most paramount significance of our mystery of code as a Freemasonry. It's a kind of protection to this opportunity to be reunited with the great architects of the universe, and for that reason, these sort of rituals, right, an opportunity to reconnect with the opportunity to be immortal as well, is so attractive to these entities, because they really want to do the same, to be in a higher level. And nevertheless, the consciousness is our opportunity. I mean,
I'm sorry, I think they actually have base emotions. They don't have altruistic and spiritual emotions. They have what Edgar Cayce refers to the bottom 4 chakras, which are to do with satisfaction and satiety, and that's all they're interested in, is satisfying
the low astral world.
Yeah, so from the 4 chakras, the top chakras were to do with communication and spiritual thinking and love. They're not interested in that. And so I just want to go back a bit. You mentioned willpower. I think what you meant to say is free will.
Yeah.
Because humans have free will to make decisions. You can kill yourself if you want to, and the spiritual world won't stop you. But if you have somebody who knows what they're doing, you can call a spiritual entity to intervene in somebody's life. And I've helped people with that. And it's a sort of reverse exorcism, where you actually call spiritual beings. And it's the most marvelous experience when they come into the room where you are. You have to be prepared for the shift in energy is just so powerful. It's like you can't speak. You're just dribbling. You're lost for words. But the same thing is, but you telepathically are communicating, and they're very supportive, and it's just a wonderful experience. So I have a small spiritual school where I teach these things to Japanese people.
Thank you to share your perspective and related this one.
Yeah, you're welcome. So I wish more people would learn how to become exorcists to help people in psychiatric hospitals. A lot of them don't deserve to be there.
Yeah, I can agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
More related to this.
Two more practical questions, Chris, before we'll let you go.
It's bedtime. It's bedtime. It's 11 at night.
Yeah. That's why I want to wrap up after 2 hours.
I'm wilting. I'm wilting.
Just on your Amazon website, you have 15 titles. Spiritual Freemasonry Volume 1 and Volume 2 are out of stock.
Yes, they are. That was a special edition.
Books, which is 33 lectures, Royal Arch, Quest for Immortality, Initiation by Light, Spiritual Alchemy. These are
Correct.
5 which are still available in different, either Kindle electronically or book. So can you just briefly tell the audience Spiritual Freemasonry Volume 1 and Volume 2, are these separate books that are not published anymore, or these books have been kind of expanded in those 5 books? How does...
Yeah, they're the same books, but I joined 2 books together to make them cheaper, and made them sort of a special event like 5 years ago. But for some reason, they still show on Amazon, even though they're not printed any longer.
Okay, they're not available anyway.
Not available, no.
All right. So these 5 books are not 5, there are more, but I mean, no, about the Freemasonry, you've got 5 books.
And I have 2 in Japanese as well. So there's 1 for each degree, basically. So I analyze each degree: 1st degree, 2nd degree, 3rd degree, and then Royal Arch. And Royal Arch is kind of like the denouement of the whole thing. And ritual for 1, 2, 3. When it comes to 4, Royal Arch, they all come together. So you get the alchemy and everything, and the spiritual bit is explained in the Taoist spiritual practice that is also given in The Secret of the Golden Flower.
Okay. Last time we spoke about the tarot. That's the second question, and I will finalize with that. And the recording is there for those who will be watching this till now. And we had a very interesting. It's always very interesting with Chris, with practicality and personal experiences. So we'll get into deeper realms of Chris's experiences than just what the topic was in the beginning. So so reminder that please go back to the recordings and enjoy the discussion about tarot. But then I remember you said that you can online kind of work on tarot cards for the persons who are interested, and you kind of provide that kind of support. They can contact you, and you do remotely. And on the other hand, you said that you help people who are obsessed, not obsessed, but obsessed as well, but with the negative,
Possessed.
yeah,
Possessed.
possessed by negative
Yeah.
entities which are
Yeah.
external, and you try
Yes.
to help them to remove them.
Yes.
Can
Yes.
you share the practical part of it? Do they have to, those who want to contact you, they just contact you? Can you do
Yep.
that online as well? Can you
Yes.
speak
You
with
don't.
them?
I don't need online. What I need is the sort of background of the situation, why they think this person is needs this sort of an exorcism. I need to know where the person's name and their birth date, because there are many people. Well, I don't know about yourself, but many people have the same names, similar names, like John Smith. Chinazde is probably not
No,
not
there
in
are,
America.
in Georgia, you have some.
Yeah, okay. But so then if you have the birth date, then that identifies that individual. Yes. So I need to know the background of the situation, the person's name, the birth date, and where they live. I don't need the number of the address, but if they live in, I don't know if they live in a suburb of New York or whatever, just send me that. It takes, for me, it's just asking the spiritual world to clear out this garbage that is interfering with this person's life. And they go, and it's just like that. It's nearly instantaneous. Message comes back to me. It's been cleared out, and that's it. I don't do anything. I just make the request. Simple.
Understood.
And I don't charge for it. It's kind of what's it called? Paying forward. Yeah, it's a service I do, and I enjoy it actually. It's I get some great letters back from people.
Wonderful. I
People
just
who,
wanted to make sure those who
yeah,
might be interested have some connection there, and they just
yeah.
communicate with you directly
I
on
yes,
Facebook, preferably.
I
Through
don't do
Messenger.
tarot readings. Even now, I don't do tarot reading. Learning the tarot was a gateway to the spiritual for me, and learning the tarot as taught by Edgar Casey, then I understood so much about the Bible and the occult. And for me, that was an opening into the spiritual. And from there, I moved on to other things. So I don't look back at tarot. I don't do it. I just teach it to students. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the so exorcism is much more serious, and I'm happy to help if people need my help.
Wonderful. Okay. In Japan, you are the what 11, 16, I suppose.
Yeah,
So
yes, exactly.
so
Exactly.
I know you start your day very early, and we've been around more than 2 hours by now. So I should thank you so much for
You're welcome.
wonderful work, wonderful time with you.
Mm,
And we wish you all the best, and may the best book
yeah,
win the prize.
best book wins. Yes.
Wonderful. Brethren who joined us later, my apologies. We have to close the session, and we'll be seeing you on next Sapere Aude. Chris, thank you so
Yep.
much, and
Yep.
you are
Take care.
you're a wonderful, wonderful speaker as always.
But I just love Freemasonry so much, and the enthusiasm. I hope that people can experience or feel my enthusiasm for Freemasonry. It's
Absolutely.
I call Freemasonry a power for good in society.
All right, brethren. Brethren, thank you so much for joining, and we'll be seeing you on next Sapere Aude. Have a wonderful evening and good night, Chris. And
Thank you.
hopefully, we'll see you in Tokyo or somewhere in Edinburgh if you manage to come to
I hope
the.
Yeah,
tries
thank you very much.
Hungarian.
Thanks a million.
All
Thanks a
right.
million, Chris, David,
It was
everyone.
nice
See
meeting
you
you,
next time.
brother. Greetings to Patagonia, and we'll be seeing you. And
It
greetings.
will be like that. See you soon. Bye bye.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you
David,
so
brother,
much. I
we will
really
be seeing you
appreciate it.
on next Sapere Aude. Sorry about the time changes. Chris was joining us from Japan, and it's quite late now there,
No
so
problem
we had
with
to
the time.
start it like 4 hours earlier than we usually meet.
Yeah.
Brother David,
Yes.
I gave the entrance to Brother Frigyes. You can see him on the screen now, from
Yeah.
Hungary, from the Quattro Coronati Circle.
Okay.
Kindly attach him to the general list.
Did you send his email to me?
No, I shall do it in a moment.
Yes, send me his email and I'll put him on the general list.
I appreciate it.
And welcome, Brother Frigyes. Your microphone is off. Let me send you the request so you can easily turn it on.
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes, greetings.
Okay. Um, um, Let me tell you some words. I'm the head of the Hungarian Masonic researches,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know what was the topic. I'm very interested in the history of Lodge Lebanon.
Okay.
Do you know something about Lebanon? Maybe you don't understand. What do I want from the Lebanon Lodge? It used
There
to be
are
a
plenty
Hungarian
of
one.
contacts directly to Lebanese brethren, but
No, I know what is he talking about. Once the Germans closed down the lodges in Germany during Second World War, a guy arrived here and passed the flame to Israel.
Uh-huh.
Within that action, 3 lodges has been established. One of them called Lebanon, and they spoke in Hungarian in Jerusalem. And Mr. Frigyes is searching the old papers of that story.
Sure.
That is about. And now I called Mr. Frigyes. I didn't call you for this issue, but to hear the lectures that Brother David is arranging in his circle, which is different issues.
Both ways, I don't mind at all. That's what we do all the time. So as for the lectures, just send me your contact list. If you use WhatsApp, then send me WhatsApp number as well. I'll put you on the WhatsApp group, and that'll be kind of quicker way of communicating when we come together for next lecture. As for the Lodge of Lebanon and Germans moving to Israel back then. I have at least 3 brothers who are doing exactly the same thing. They're researching the history. I have wonderful contacts. I can kind of connect you, and they definitely will help you with all the details. So I don't see why we cannot arrange that. I mean, there's plenty of resources for that.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, just let's communicate through WhatsApp if it's easier for you, or by email. I don't mind. I can send you my
Everything,
contacts here.
all the same. Thank you for your kind help. Are you Professor Chichinadze?
Where
No.
Professor Tichinadze, I hold the degree of doctorate degree in economics, but there is another professor who deals with mathematical some things. Which
Yeah.
one?
Okay.
He
There
does more academic
there is
work
more
than
than one Cohen in the world.
yeah.
Okay.
Interestingly, David, and also Joseph, I've done some, as I say, Masonic research in that particular region. And one of the things I uncovered when I was trying to look at the development of Freemasonry in Palestine was that it was either 3 or 5 German lodges that actually relocated to Palestine in order to keep German Freemasonry alive during the Hitler years,
Yes.
when Freemasonry was basically shut down in effect.
I translated several books regarding that, and I have no problem to advertise it.
Right, okay. That's fair enough, because I think
you can see
those
my
3
email
lodges actually joined the new Grand Lodge of the State of Israel when it was consecrated back in the 50s by the Grand Lodge of Scotland, I seem to recall, because there are German-speaking lodges that still exist out there, so I understand.
So again, if any contact is needed with Israeli brothers who can provide, definitely I know can provide some more information or insight regarding that part of the history. Please drop me a line I shared in the chat room my email and my WhatsApp number that I use for kind of these topics, and I'll connect you with them, and you definitely will have a lot of access to a lot of interesting resources. So definitely, and as I see here, Brother Michael and Joseph, who have very good knowledge of that part of that as well.
I sent the email this moment.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Thank you very much for your kind help.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Anytime if I can be of any help and assistance, that's what we come together for. Okay, brethren, then it was nice meeting you, and I'm online. You have my contacts there, and we'll be seeing you on next Sapere Aude. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
I just want to mention that the invitation to this meeting didn't include the details of the entrance.
It didn't.
I didn't receive it on the WhatsApp. The last invitation that I received was of the 12th.
Okay, so I sent out yesterday.
No, I received a lot of messages regarding we should start in such and such time, but none of the entrance.
Yes, but usually this is how I work. Day before the lecture, I sent out the invitation in the WhatsApp.
This one isn't received.
Yes, but it was there, and in the invitation in PDF, it always has the links and all the details. The invitation letter has all the details.
Maybe I skipped it. Okay.
Maybe I checked as we speak, and I see Chris's invitation is right there in the Sapere Aude World chat. Anyway, my apologies. I saw your message later as we were engaged in the discussion. I just missed popping up communication, and I missed it. All right, brethren. That's how we say goodbye in my native Georgia, and we'll be seeing you on next Sapere Aude.
Right.
Nice meeting you, brethren. Nice meeting you.
Bye-bye.
Have a wonderful rest of the Sunday. Bye.
Bye-bye.